Well, we are incredible creatures of habit. Whatever you do all the time becomes a habit. And how you view all kinds of things are habit-driven. Our service started 2 minutes ago, and you talked through most of it because you have the habit of John singing a song, and you let the first song go before you really start even thinking about that I'm in church and that I am in a holy place and I've entered into a time to worship. There is nothing that you probably do more from a habit than what your view of money is and how you see your money and how you spend your money and how you save your money and how you invest your money and how you view money in general. So this morning we're doing something very different. We're not starting with music. And for those of you that are coming in, you're not going to bother me at all. Y'all come on in and find a seat. There's always seats down front and to this side. And then we're going to be putting some chairs out in just a moment. So this morning we're going to have some teaching time. And then we're going to have a little singing. And then we're going to come back and have a little bit more teaching time for what we're doing this morning. So I'd like for you to pray with me. Father God, we come into this place today and we ask for you to help us to be aware of your presence. And Father, I know that all of us come with different stories and different belief systems and different ideas about you. Some of us have not thought about you since last Sunday morning when we were in church. Some of us have already spent time with you this morning. And then there's those of us that may not even be sure that you exist. And Father, as we come into this place today, we ask that you would help us. That you would help us to hear exactly what it is you want to speak into our hearts. And not just something for us to hear, but for something that would stir in our hearts to the place that we would put action to it. Father, we thank you for your love. We thank you for your grace and your mercy. And we welcome your Spirit into this place this morning. In your name we pray. Amen. If you do not learn how to manage money, money will manage you. If you do not learn how to manage money, money will manage you. So what we're going to talk about today is we're going to talk about money. And that can be an uncomfortable conversation. That can be an uncomfortable thing to think about and to talk about. And we're going to talk a lot about managing our money. And as you hear the word manage, one of the things that I want you to make sure is I want you to make sure you have a proper definition of manage. When I say manage your money, when I say manage money, I'm not talking about making sure you have enough in the bank. That is part of it. I'm not talking about what your spending habit or just your spending habits. That's a part of it. I'm talking about the whole giant picture of what it relates to and how money relates to our life. I'm not sure if you're aware of this, but Jesus talked about money more than he did heaven and hell combined. And that should grab your attention. Half of the parables that Jesus taught. And the parables were these little stories that Jesus would teach. Sometimes they would make sense. Sometimes they wouldn't make sense. Sometimes he'd have to explain them. Half of all of the parables that Jesus taught deal with money in some form. If you took Matthew, Mark, and Luke, those three Gospels, and you took all of the stuff that Jesus talked about money and spread it out, every sixth verse you would read would be about money. So I know what some of you think. Some of you think, well, I'm at church this morning and the pastor's going to talk about money. They're always talking about money at church. Well, I want to correct you. If you've been a part of Anthem Community Church for the past 4 years, you realize this is not the case. But I would like to state this morning that if I was going to be more like Jesus, I would talk to you half the time about money. I'm failing miserably. Why is money so important? Why does Jesus talk about it so much? Why did he spend so much time? Well, that's pretty obvious, isn't it? Every aspect of our lives deal with money. I mean, money dominates what you do. Money dominates where you wear, what you wear, where you live. Money's going to dominate what you do tomorrow morning for most of us. You have ever played that game? Well, what would I do if money weren't an object? Weren't an object? What would you do if money didn't matter? Like, where would you live and what would you drive and where would you go on vacation if money wasn't a concern? Well, obviously that's not real in life because every aspect of life involves money. We're in this series that's called Transformed, and we're coming towards the end of our transformed time, and we've talked about our spiritual health, we've talked about our physical health, we've talked about our mental health, we've talked about our emotional health. Last week we talked about our relational health. All of those are on our webpage. You also can go to YouTube and you type in Anthem Community Church. We have a station there now that's got all kinds of stuff, everything. You can go back and watch a lot of past teachings. Today what we're going to talk about is our financial health. And what does that mean? And what do we do with this idea of money? And what is our take supposed to be about money? And the scripture that we're going to be looking at today is found in Luke chapter 16, verses 1 through 13. So I'm going to read this, and this is a parable. This is Jesus teaching to his followers, and in this particular case, the Pharisees. So starting in Luke chapter 16, verse 1, it's called the parable of the shrewd manager. Jesus told this story to his disciples. There was a certain rich man who had a manager handling his affairs. One day a report came that the manager was wasting his employer's money. So the employer called him in and said, "What's this I hear about you? Get your report in order because you're going to be fired." The manager thought to himself, "Now what? My boss has fired me. I don't have the strength to dig ditches, and I'm too proud to beg. I know how to ensure that I have plenty of friends who will give me a home when I am fired." So he invited each person who owed money to his employer to come and discuss the situation. He asked the first one, "How much do you owe him?" The man replied, "I owe him 800 gallons of olive oil." So the manager told him, "Take the bill and quickly change it to 400 gallons. "And how much do you owe my employer?" he asked the next man. "I owe him 1,000 bushels of wheat," was the reply. Here the manager said, "Take the bill and change it to 800 bushels. The rich man had to admire the dishonest rascal for being so shrewd. And it was true that the children of this world are more shrewd in dealing with the world around them than are the children of the light. I want to read that verse again. The rich man had to admire the dishonest rascal for being so shrewd And it is true that the children of this world, i.e. non-Christians, are more shrewd in dealing with the world around them than are the children of the light, i.e. Christians. Here's the lesson. Use your worldly resources to benefit others and make friends. Then when your earthly possessions are gone, they will welcome you to an eternal home. If you are faithful in the little things, you will be faithful in the large ones. But if you're dishonest in the little things, you won't be honest with greater responsibilities. And if you're untrustworthy about worldly wealth, who will trust you with the true riches of heaven? And if you are not faithful with other people's things, why should you be trusted with the things of your own? No one can serve two masters, for you will hate one and love the other. You will be devoted to one and despise the other. You cannot serve both God and money. So it's an interesting story, isn't it? It's an interesting story because who is the hero of the story? A dishonest, shrewd manager. This doesn't seem like Jesus. Why would he make this guy the hero of this story? Well, for us to understand that, there's a couple of different things that we've got to understand. The first thing is this, is that Jesus is not praising the man's dishonesty. He's praising the man's shrewdness. And if you'll notice when he's telling the story, and by the way, this is a story, this is a parable, this is a made-up thing. He says, when the rich man finds out what this manager has done, he calls him a shrewd rascal. And he said, hey, that's pretty shrewd what you're doing. He did not praise him for his dishonesty. Jesus is not in any way saying that we're supposed to be dishonest in any way. But he does make the hero of this story a shrewd manager. So there's something that we can learn from that. The second thing that we need to understand about this is who Jesus is talking to. Jesus is talking to his disciples. And I purposely didn't put the next verse. It's not even on the screen. I'm going to read in the script from Scripture in a little bit. But anytime Jesus was talking to the disciples, it was rare that just the disciples were present. A lot of times we read that Jesus was talking to the disciples and we think Jesus is like out in the middle of a field and it's just the 12 disciples around him. When Jesus was teaching, there was always lots of people listening. And in this case, the Pharisees are listening. So it's really important that we understand that as Jesus is telling this story that the Pharisees are listening to Jesus. Now, who are the Pharisees? And most of us know who the Pharisees are. But here's some characteristics of the Pharisees. The Pharisees were self-righteous. They were arrogant. They were prideful. They were demanding. And above all, they were hypocritical. Now, I know you don't know anybody like that. Now, here's the verse that I didn't read. After the story, this is what Luke says. The Pharisees, who dearly loved their money, heard this and scoffed at him. The Pharisees, self-righteous, demanding, arrogant, hypocritical, money-loving. Couldn't possibly describe you, could it? I mean, could you possibly be considered in this category? I think I'm a pretty good Christian and I love my money. Yeah, that's probably us. I'm a pretty good Christian. I mean, I haven't killed anybody. Not doing any hard drugs at the moment. Sure do like my money. This is who Jesus is talking to. If I don't learn how to manage money, money will manage me. This story that Jesus tells gives us some information. It tells us some things of what not to do with our money. And if you're taking notes, we're going to go through these pretty quickly. But here's some things not to do with your money. The first one is don't waste it. How did this manager get in trouble to begin with? He's wasting his boss's money. This manager has been given money that's not his. He's been given responsibility that's not his, and he's been asked to manage it and take care of it and to do all the proper things with it and use it for all the things that it's supposed to be used and not abuse it and not waste it. And he does that, and in return, he loses his job, hence the whole story. So what do I need to make sure that I'm not doing with money is wasting it. Wasting money. Not something that we're supposed to do with our money. The second one, don't trust it for security. One of the reasons that we love money so much is because we think that's where our security is. And we just feel better when we have money in the bank. And we just feel better when we have the high-paying job. And it just does something to us because all of life is dominated by money. But we cannot place our security in it because you can lose the job very quickly. Sometimes it's because of your own dumb fault. You do something stupid, you lose the job. Sometimes the economy changes. Sometimes the corporation is bought by somebody else and they want to bring all their people in. Something health-wise could happen to you where you lose your income. And then what? And this is the story. This is the situation that this man found himself in. So if I'm going to manage the money that is in my life, I've got to make sure that I'm defining manage by all aspects of it, not just taking care of it, not just putting in the savings account, not just investing it in the right situation. But if I see money as my security, then I'm not managing money properly because the money can go very quickly. The third thing is don't love it. Verse 13 tells us that. Don't love it. Often the verse in the New Testament is quoted that the money is the root of all evil. And it is not. The verse says this, the love of money is the root of all evil. Money is not something that we're supposed to love. And then the fourth one is this, don't expect it to satisfy. Don't expect it to satisfy. Now here's what the world will teach you. Now in the story, in the parable, what we have here is we have Jesus saying, listen, children that are not of the light, lost people, handle their money better than children of the light. And what the world will tell you, what Antichrist will tell you, is that money is what you need. There's several different ways that you can say it. You can say status, sex, and salary. Status, sex, and salary. That's what's going to make your life satisfied. That's how you're truly going to be satisfied. If you've got that. Maybe you like this one better. Possessions, power, or pleasure. This is the stuff that's constantly preached at us. This is what Fifth Avenue is about. This is what every advertisement's about. This is what all of the music we listen to is about. This is what it's about. It's about sex and status and salary, or it's about possessions and power and pleasure. And when we buy into that and we think that it's going to satisfy us, it does not. Here's what Ecclesiastes says. Ecclesiastes 5:10 says this, those who love money will never have enough. In fact, they asked Howard Hughes, at the time richest man in the world, how much money is enough? And you know what his answer was? Just a little bit more. Just a little bit more. Those who love money will never have enough. I've known some people I've never really known them, but I've known some people and have friendships with some people who know some incredibly wealthy people. I have a friend who actually was the pilot for a billionaire. And I used to love to go to have lunch, and my favorite topic was the billionaire. Tell me about the billionaire. Tell me, you're flying this guy all over the world. Tell me about him. He says, well, he works about 90 hours a week. Really? And how old is he? He's 77. He works 90 hours a week. I said, but how much money is he worth? And he would tell me, I said, that started with a B, right? A B? He says, yeah. Because it's never enough. When that is what you love, and when that is what you think your security is, and when that you think everything is about, there's never enough. And that's what this scripture tells us. How meaningless to think that wealth brings true happiness. If wealth brought true happiness, then the richest people in the world would be the happiest people in the world, and they tend to be the most miserable people in the world. And here's what Jesus says in Luke. Another place in Luke, he says, then he said, beware, guard against every kind of greed. Life is not measured by how much you own. Now this is weird, right? Because all of your friends who aren't Christians measure life by what? How much they own. But Jesus is saying our life, what we're about, can't be measured by these things. So 4 really simple things not to do with money. Don't waste it. Don't trust it for your security. Don't love it. Don't expect it to satisfy. And then here's some things to think about when it comes to how can I think about money. Because money dominates my thoughts. It dominates my life. It's easy for me to think that it's easy for me to let it control me. It's easy for you to think and let it control you. And to think that that's what your security is, and that's what you to think that that's your meaning in life is. So here's some things to think about. The first one is this. It all belongs to God. I mean, Jesus tells this story, and he's talking about money, so he starts off by saying there's this really wealthy master who is given opportunity for this manager to manage this money. Now, when you read a parable of Jesus, and he is talking about a father or a master or a rich person, you know who that person always represents? God. Okay, so the guy who owns all the stuff, the guy who's getting cheated out of his money by the shrewd manager is God. Okay, so the manager, who is he cheating? Okay, we're going to have to get this one right, all right? Who was the manager cheating? Who was the manager cheating? This side over here doesn't seem to agree with us. Who was the manager cheating? Thank you. Thank you. It's not your money. Now, I have to go back and watch the tape, but I've tried to be very careful up to this point, and I don't think I've messed up, but I haven't called it your money yet. Because it's not yours. And as long as you think it's yours, it will manage you. Well, Marty, I worked really hard for this. Yeah? You want a cookie for that? You use the brain that God gave you and the abilities and the talents that God gave you, because you could be one of those people that doesn't have any. So you didn't get there on your own. It's not yours. It's never been yours. It's not yours now. It never will be yours. So I'm going to give you some challenges this morning. The first challenge I'm going to give you is this. Is the next time you say, my money, I want you to slap yourself in the face. Or, you can do that, yeah, whatever. It's not yours. Now, that's not my opinion. That's God's word. It belongs to God. Second thing to think about this, God is using money to test me. Now this is a little bit This is one of the things that we don't think a whole lot about time. God is using money to test me. He goes into it after he tells the story. He goes and he starts talking about, to whom much is given, much is, he goes in and he talks about this. Well, if you can't take care of this, then why would I give you this? And if you can't do this, why would... And he goes into this, and second challenge is to take this story this week as you're doing your devotionals and read it slowly. Because the possessions that you have are a test. If you can't manage an earthly possession that has no eternal value, why would God give you responsibility and power for something of eternal value? I'm going to say that again. If you can't manage an earthly possession, i.e. a paycheck, if you can't do that over something that has no eternal significance whatsoever. By the way, if you make it to heaven, your mansion will not be based on your 401k. So whatever you have here, possession-wise, matters nada in eternity. And if I can't manage, and if God can't trust me the here and the now with this stuff, then why is He going to bless me or trust me with stuff of eternal significance? He's not. God does not trust people with His power randomly. He doesn't just throw it out there and see where it lands. It's not what He does. He gives it to people that He knows He can trust. He gives it to people who are doing what they're supposed to be doing with the possessions that God has given them. God is using money to test me. He's given and using what He's given you to test you. Now, we as men and women do this as well. Way back in, I can't remember when it was, 2005-ish. I was getting to the point where I was ready to plant a church, and the part of the system that I was a part of, you had to have a church planner assessment. In fact, I was just talking to somebody this week about church planners and trying to find church planners in Las Vegas, and the vast majority of them fail. They can't pass the assessment. You want to know the first thing in my assessment done by the North American Mission Board was? You would think they would say, Marty, tell us how you met Jesus. That wasn't the first thing. Tell us about, what ministries you've done. No. You know the first thing? The first hurdle I had to clear. You know what it was? Credit report. Credit report. Because if you can't handle what God's given you in the here and the now, and the stuff that's not going to matter, He's not going to trust you with stuff that does. He's testing you. And you know this. You've heard these things. Your money will show you what you love the most. It will show you what you trust the most. And it will show you if God can trust me. Shows what I love most. Shows what I trust most. And shows if God can trust me. Third, money is a tool to be used. It's a tool to be used. It's in verse 9. Verse 9 says, here's the lesson. This is the whole point of the story. Use your worldly resources to benefit others and make friends. Then when your earthly possessions are gone, they will welcome you into what kind of home? An eternal home. Now this businessman was shrewd. Now here's what shrewd people do, okay? Now remember, Jesus praised him for his what? Shrewdness. It is okay to be shrewd. In fact, as a Christian, you need to be shrewd. You need to know how to be shrewd. You're not dishonest, but shrewd. Here's what shrewd people do. They see the problem clearly. They know what needs to be done. And they figure out how to do it. See the problem clearly. Most of us do not see the money problem that we have in our lives clearly, because what we think the biggest money problem that we have is we don't have enough. That's what we think the problem is. You know what my money problem is? I don't have enough, right? That's what we all think. That's not the problem. That's not the problem. Someone who's shrewd sees the problem clearly, knows what needs to be done, and figures out how to do it. Now here's what he did. In verse 3, it tells us that he looked ahead. Oh no, I just got fired. I got fired. I don't have any money coming in. I'm not going to have any place to live. I need some real close friends real quick. Okay? So he looked ahead. By the way, average family in Europe saves 12% of their income on a yearly basis. In Japan, 25%. In the United States, minus 1%. We'll say that again. In Europe, the average family saves 12%. Japan, 25%. In the United States, minus 1%. Well, how in the world can you live on more money than you make? Well, they're called credit cards. Look ahead. He made a plan, and he acted quickly. He looked ahead, he made a plan, and he acted quickly. Money is a tool to be used. He used it in a shrewd way to develop the relationships and the friendships that would have an eternal consequence. Money is a tool to be used. We're supposed to love people and use money. And our sinful heart inverts that. And we love money and use people. Fourth one day I'll give an account to God. One day I'll give an account to God. God is the ultimate auditor. You may get really nervous from the 3 letters IRS. The IRS has got nothing on God. He's the ultimate auditor. And one day, all of us are going to give an account for the life that we live. And if Jesus chose to talk about money for half of his parables, that means we probably need to be auditing our take and our view of money. Would you pray with me? Father, we give you this story that you have given us. And you've told us the story of this shrewd manager that somehow you make the hero of the story, which seems counter to us. But that's what you do. There's a lot for us to learn here. Father, I ask that you would help us to be able to manage money. Because we don't want to be in a place where money manages us. Father, help us to spend some time this week reading this story. And then your teaching and your words that you put at the end of that, and where you remind us that it's impossible for us to love you and love money. And that our money is not just connected to where we live or what we drive or what we wear or where we go on vacation, but what we're doing with money has an awful lot to do with what you're doing with us and where you allow us to make a difference in your kingdom. So, Father, as we enter into a time where we're going to worship you through music, may you remind us through the songs that we sing that you are God and that we are not. And that our money is not that. It is not our money. It is yours. You've given it to us. And you have a plan for it, and you have a plan for us. We ask that you would help us to worship in these next few moments as we sing to you, about you. Holy Spirit, we invite you into this place this day. In your name we pray. Amen.